What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here, joined by Andy Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast, ready to break down the 23-6 victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Andy, happy Victory Monday. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy Victory Monday to you as well. A 17-point victory, so clearly nothing to complain about whatsoever. But no,
we'll get there.
It was a fun game. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing, sexy game in the world, but one that I loved every second of, and kind of a perfect precursor to a big game coming up this Thursday on Thanksgiving as well.
I think that's a good place to start too, because it is aesthetically pleasing if you like certain things, right?
Sure.
Like if you are in on the grounding and pounding in the run game, this is certainly a game you would probably enjoy. I mean, especially given the approach that the Packers took throughout. And I know, to your point, there were some grumbling about, especially in the second half, how LaFleur really leaned into the ground game, almost eschewing the passing game at points. Felt like maybe a throwback to the 1950s. I know he made a joke about 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but it was effective. And I think the biggest surprise, and I don't know, maybe you thought this was going to happen, I certainly didn't, was the effectiveness of Emmanuel Wilson. And not just, okay, yeah, he was able to make plays, etc., but just the way he did it, like the power, the elusiveness, some of the vision that he had on these cutbacks. I mean, it was truly impressive.
There were a couple plays where, to the 3 yards in cloud of dust, you would have the cloud of dust, and then all of a sudden you would expect him to be on the ground, and then he was 7 yards
down the field.
And I'd be like, oh, how the heck did he kind of get through there? It's like the Bugs Bunny cartoon where everyone's beating up on each other, and the guy pops out on the other side and just kind of is watching everyone beat up on each other. I think one of the things he's done a really good job of throughout the years is really learning how to run behind his pads better. I thought that was something that coming into the league, he wasn't quite as attuned at. In this particular game, he ran hard. There was the play for the touchdown where Cashman has him dead to rights in the hole. And I think, Olsen said it perfectly. He's got him right dead to rights, and he runs right over him and gets in the end zone. Those were not easy yards. Those were not easy touchdowns. Those are the ones that you expect Josh Jacobs to make, where it's like, yep, there's nothing there, but Josh Jacobs is going to find a way anyway to get into the end zone. And Emmanuel Wilson just picked up right where he left off and said, yep, I can do that too. I thought it was a really impressive game from him.
And then kind of pulling back and looking at kind of the offense as a whole. And I mean, there were boos raining down in Lambeau in the second half on some of these third down calls, right? And I get fans' frustrations, but to my way of thinking, and I'd like to know your kind of viewpoint here, when you got to kind of the middle of the third quarter, the game was over, right?
Over.
And I understand fans wanted the Packers to kind of pile on the points and try and all gas, no break it. But I do think, and I'm pretty sure you asked LaFleur after the game if Jordan's injury played any part in this and kind of shutting it down. And he punted on that. But I think if we got him on some truth serum, I think it at least would play a role. I'm not saying it was the reason.
Right.
But the man is literally handing off the ball with his other hand throughout this entire game, kind of informing you of how, still significant that shoulder might be. I think that played at least a role, if not a driving role.
Well, he paused for a moment and kind of thought about it. And then he's like, no, not really. Right. And again, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was. I think what I would say is just kind of the accumulation of information from that game, right? So you're up 17-6 at that point. Everyone in the stadium, in the state of Minnesota, everyone knows that they're not going to put up 11 more points in that game to tie it, much less win it. That game is done at that point in time.
Oh, they might not get a first down.
They might not get a first down. And the truth is that the only way that you get back in that game, if you're the Vikings, is if you get a defensive turnover or Jordan Love throws an interception or something crazy. That's the only way. And what I really want, I'm sure that there's probably a piece of Matt that would be like, yeah, it'd be fun to go out and get a bunch more points. It earns you nothing. It earns you absolutely. And what coaches are looking for is just win the damn game. That's I know we get all caught up in point differential and how that looks for future games, and I understand it in certain circumstances, but at a certain point in time, just play the game that's in front of you, and the game that's in front of you is over. It's done with. It's dead. Don't resurrect it. Don't resurrect it for any reason whatsoever. Add on top of that you've got a quarterback that is beat up. You are without playmakers like Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft and Matthew Golden. You don't have your full slate of wide receivers and tight ends. You have a defense that's playing out of their damn mind on the opposite side of the field. Emmanuel Wilson is running well, and you've got a game in 4 days. You add all of that up together, and it's just you know what? we don't need to do anything additional here. Let's keep running that clock. You know what? If we have to settle for a couple field goals or punt, Aaron, they could have got the ball on first down every single time and punted the ball right into the end zone and got him at the 20-yard line.
Right.
Green Bay was going to win that game. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I know, again, I understand the frustrations, and I got a couple of messages and mentions on Twitter regarding, oh, that should have been 40, and no doubt if the game is even close to in balance, then probably LaFleur pushes it a little bit. But the other kind of issue there is the way, and you can expect this against Flores and the Vikings, the way they were just blitzing on every single down. You just, to your point, there's zero reason to risk not like missing a block or Jordan having just the slightest hesitation and then getting lit up and making that shoulder worse. It just felt completely in control, and there was zero reason to risk dropping back for any kind of legitimate reason other than, okay, now the one time I think late in the game it was 3rd and long and they tried to throw it downfield, incomplete, fine, to get off and kick the ball. But yeah, it's so funny too because I think it feels like most people understand that intellectually, but because it's in Lambeau, it's the Vikings, we all hate them, and you want to like twist that knife. But you can enjoy the way the defense did that. The way Micah Parsons and company wrecked shop up front and made this kid just look, I mean, completely forget ineffective. I mean, he just didn't look like an NFL quarterback. That should be your enjoyment because that's essentially what the defensive front did in the second half.
No, I mean, there's so much to enjoy from this defensively, and we can make the JJ McCarthy. They just beat the Lions a few weeks ago. Like this is
in Detroit.
In Detroit, it's not just a given. You have to go out and still play the game. And what the defense did in this game, again, the 2 field goals. The first one is like a 52-yarder, and it's off of the fact that you kicked a ball into the end zone to give them it at the 35. If you get that at the 25, which they held them to the majority of the game, that thing's a 62-yard. They're punting that ball away. So yes, the defense allowed 31 yards on that drive, but like if it's a decent field position, you probably get them off the field. The other one's what, a 59-yarder that he makes
at the end of the half, right?
At the end of the half. And the one time they got into the red zone, you stuffed them on 2 consecutive downs to get them off the field on a 3rd and 4th down stop. Like they did everything you could have asked them to. There was nothing fluky about it. It wasn't like a Viking player dropped a touchdown in the end zone or something like you completely dominated them. And at time you had Kamal Haden in there at corner going against either Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson at times. Like it wasn't like you had your full deck of cards on defense either. LVN only played 7 snaps in this game. Carl Brooks only played 3. They were able to navigate that stuff and just completely, what I would say, I know it's 6 points, but basically pitch a shutout in that game.
They definitely did. Quickly getting back to the offensive side of the ball, what did you make of the play of Anthony Belton? Because I know they pretty much set it and forget it in the second half and let him kind of run the course there at right guard. I tell you what, I think he may have just taken that job because I like, some things Jordan Morgan has done, but he's certainly been inconsistent. And I think that's, not telling the tale out of school. I think that's more than fair. But Belton, at least in the running game, seemed to really kind of take ownership of, I'm going to steal this man's soul across from me. And he did it repeatedly to the point where I loved Matt talking about how I've never called the same run play so many times in a row. And I think Belton was a part of that just because of his style and his physicality.
Yeah, I would say a couple things is, all right, so they're both young and they're both going to be inconsistent, right? We have kind of those are equal things. They're both going to have their issues in pass protection at times. They're going to probably blow an assignment here or there. Some of the blitz pickups are they're pretty even there. But then you get to run blocking, and one of them's a 330-pound mauler, right. And the other one's just trying to kind of, either steal off or just doesn't have that same level of power, right? So if the other stuff is basically kind of created equal at this standpoint, and then but one of them's a much better run blocker and has that ability to kind of move some people, yeah, give me the guy that can move some people in the run game. And it's going to take a little bit of time here, but maybe over the course of the next month or so, hopefully before, again, assuming they get there, the playoffs start. Mm-hmm. I do like the potential of a Banks, Ryan, and Belton interior of that offensive line. Agreed. Especially as we get November, December, January football, just being able to move some people a little bit more. I think there is some potential there. I think we saw a glimpse of it in this game, and that has me a little bit excited about what could be moving forward.
And the other thing they've done in the run game, and sometimes in the passing game, depending on the front and what Jordan gets into, but it was seemingly a new wrinkle coming out of the bye week a little bit, but they've really leaned into it these last 2 games, is the extra linemen having Kennard in there.
Yes.
That's almost, I'm not going to say it's a staple of the offense now, but it's trending that way. I mean, the amount of times they used it, it was giving me flashbacks to Kevin Barry and U71, the jumbo package back in like 2003 when they were running over teams with Amon Green. I'm not ready to say it's that yet, obviously, but I tell you what, it's been effective. And I suspect we're going to see that for the remainder of the season.
And not only that, but I think this is something that they're just starting to get into, and they haven't even put a bunch of wrinkles into it yet and some of the stuff they can do off of it.
Yep.
And that's what I'm really excited about. Because if I'm being honest, I want to see a lot of the 3 wide receiver sets with 6 offensive linemen and then a running back in the backfield, especially to get Jacobs back.
Yes.
Because what I want is, how are you going to match up against that? You kind of have to go nickel because you've got 3 wide receivers out there. All right, now I'm going nickel, but I've got 6 offensive linemen up front and Josh Jacobs. Like, I feel like I can get 4 or 5 yards in those situations.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that's what I'm excited about. And then, you know, we haven't even seen again some of the stuff that LaFleur is going to be able to be creative with off of it. So I'm all in. I think they should run more of it. And when you lose something like a Tucker Kraft, there has to be a bit of an evolution for who you are. You can't just do the same stuff. And we kind of saw that right away when they were still throwing some of the stuff to Musgrave in the flat. And it's just like, that's not going to work anymore. You don't have that guy anymore. So you have to evolve. And I do feel like this is a key part of the evolution with no more Tucker Kraft on offense.
And then back on the defensive side of the ball, you mentioned Haden coming in, losing Nixon the way they did. I mean, it's so ridiculous running into your own dude on the sideline.
Sucks.
It is what it is. But I will say, I get this kid at quarterback for the Vikings is struggling, and, you know, you don't think too much of it after the game. But in the game, I kept waiting for them to attack Kamal Haden. And maybe for, you know, the roles of coverage as far as, okay, we're going to roll the safety that way or what have you, coupled with whatever routes they were running with Jefferson or even Addison. It just surprised me that it never occurred. But then going back and watching it, you know, I thought the kid held up well, and just in straight up coverage, not necessarily like, you know, oh God, sign him up for all pro, but I was pleasantly surprised at just, nothing seemed too big for him. He seemed to really kind of just legit just step on the field and fill that void on the defensive side.
There's only so much you can tell when, again, the other quarterback's not throwing effectively and, you know, you're not getting thrown at a ton and things like that. But man, did the demeanor fit the test? I thought he came in and played well against the run. He had no back down against guys like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. The moment was not too big for him. And then post game for Matt LaFleur to kind of go out of his way. I want to get the right quote here from Matt, but basically saying he has made as much progress as any player that we've had here. I mean, that is a hell of a statement of like basically the progression from when they got him till now is as large as they've seen from any player. I mean, that's a hell of a statement. We were, you know, in the press box when it happened, kind of expecting Bo Melton to go in, and then it ends up being Haden. And then you hear that afterwards. And I was a Haden guy in training camp. I was hoping that they were going to keep him.
That's true.
But I mean, that's a big time first performance, and hopefully something that he can stack it. Might be a little bit different. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, if he's got to go.
I was just going to say
this Thursday, that's a different animal with Jared Goff at quarterback in that offense. But right now, at least from a demeanor standpoint, looking the part, I don't go into that game with a ton of fear because of it.
And, you know, we'd be remiss, Andy, in this game, coming off of this game in particular, not to mention the play of the special teams, who legit had the play of the game in the punt, fumble, recovery, excellent kick, obviously, by Daniel Whelan. But Zane Anderson, not only is he real, he's affecting football games. I mean, that is such a heady veteran play, and he just essentially does it all himself on that play. That is outstanding work from Zane Anderson.
It really is. I mean, first of all, get the punt that hits and then kind of backs up a little, because you can tell the players, and he's expecting that ball just basically to go into. He's making sure that it doesn't go in the end zone, or like gets to the end zone and that the player can't get there to touch it down. It's like normally a very heady play by the returner, but Whalen gets the backspin on it a little bit. And then, you know, Anderson sees it there, sees that this dude has no idea, and then just bull rushes him right into the ball and then recovers it on his own, and really is the game-changing play, because if we want to be critical of anything offensively, they have 3 drives in the first half. They go touchdown, field goal, and then they have a punt like that. All right, they scored on 2 of their 3 drives in the first half. They're at 10 points. They only got 3 opportunities, whatever. But then they get the ball in the second half, and you've got the ability to, go down and at least make this a 1 touchdown game, or if you score a touchdown, make it a 2 possession game.
Really in control,
and they have it in control, right? And they don't. They have to punt the ball right away coming out of half. It's a disappointment. You punt the ball away, and your special teams, yes, the special teams comes up with the massive play. So kudos to Zane, kudos to Daniel Whalen, who I thought was phenomenal. You made all your kicks. Your punter was fantastic. You had 1 really good punt return. You covered great all day. You did have 1 punt that, Romeo Doubs decided to stand in mud for about 15 minutes and decide what he wanted to do. Decided.
I'm sorry. I love it. I think
listen, if you're going to take 15 minutes to decide where to go, at least find the right pathway and don't go horizontally into 7 defenders that are ready to guard. But other than that, I'm willing to give some accident forgiveness on 1 punt return when the rest of the day looked pretty damn well from a special team standpoint.
I'm glad you brought up the idea of how they came out second half, and if they do go down and score there, they take control of the game, and the defensive side of the ball can really start to get after it and pin their ears back. And then so it does end up happening because of the special teams play, and it was fascinating to watch, Andy. Complementary football.
Yes.
So really the first time since week 2, I want to say, in a real sense. And it was so amazing to watch essentially everything that Jeff Hafley talked about last Thursday, saying, like, if we can get this multi-score lead in the second half, you're going to see all these things start to come back. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, from the sacks to the interceptions, Rashawn Gary getting involved, like everything. I mean, you could go down the checklist of everything you talked about last Thursday. It all occurred once they took control on the scoreboard.
I will say this. I think a lot of where this team goes from here on out is going to be predicated on what happens early. Like, if this is a grinded out game where it's like it can go in any direction, they can beat Detroit. They can beat Detroit. They can lose to the Browns. Like, any given week, if it's a grinded out game and it's close, you just flip a coin and you have no idea, right?
Yep.
If you're behind, Green Bay has shown that they can get back in those games. Like, they're not going to quit. And that's, again, another interesting one. But the other team obviously has an advantage. But if Green Bay gets up on you in sort of those, 11-point double-digit looks, that you do not want to face Green Bay when they are in that situation, especially against, Green Bay's defense. That's when they can really dial it up. And we saw it really against Washington and Detroit early in the year. We saw it yesterday against Minnesota. That's not where you want to live against Green Bay. So, hopefully if Green Bay can start being a little bit more efficient on offense earlier in games, that'd be nice. If we could see that, I think you can see more games like this, and all of a sudden Green Bay starting to pick up some big wins really quick.
So you mentioned Thursday's contest, obviously the big Thanksgiving matchup with Detroit. We won't be doing a preview of video this week, so I did want to get your thoughts real quick before we go. It's interesting coming off that Giants game, both teams coming off their Giants games, and a lot of Lions fans were chirping after the Packers, quote, had trouble with the Giants. Didn't take us overtime, I'll tell you that.
It did not.
I mean, it's fascinating to me to watch this Detroit team in the back half of this season. There are so many weeks where it looks like they're inevitable. And then there are weeks where, man, they're just kind of repeatedly stubbing their toe. And it kind of reminds me of the Packers in that regard, right?
Yeah.
I do think this is going to be the case where maybe not the deep shot to Watson on the first play of the game like we saw a couple Thanksgivings ago, but something similar, I would suspect, coming out, like getting off the bus. I know Matt's been running the hell out of the football the last 3 or 4 games. I think this might be the game where he starts kind of taking, putting the foot on the gas, so to speak, right away, but maybe does try and get a few more chunk plays early in the game to do exactly what you're talking about, because they've shown if they can, get that lead and take control of the game. We saw it in week 1. Jared Goff had real issues. So I do think this is there's a decent chance that that's kind of how they come out of the gate on Thursday.
I think they take the ball if they win the toss in this one. I just gut feel. I think they take the ball. I think they want to go put up points. I think they can put up points on this Lions defense as well. And if they can do that, again, they're in a very advantageous situation. This has the ability to be a very fun game. This could go in a variety of different directions. I can't wait for it. And just what you were mentioning earlier of like the Lions, with the up and down, kind of reminds me of the Packers. also the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, the
Right.
Buffalo Bills, there's some of these powerhouse teams that we all expected to be like the Super Bowl content. It is a tough league right now. And we are seeing all these teams have some high highs and some low lows. And this is going to be one that if you look at where the division and playoff standings go from here on out, this is one of the real games that could shift this in a variety of different ways. So I do think that they're going to want to get out early. And I mean, the other thing too, is if you can get out early, maybe, just maybe you limit some of the stuff that Jahmyr Gibbs can do against you because my God, if you're living in a world where that guy's getting 25 touches and you have to worry about him in the run in the pass game, that's not where you want to live. Both tight ends out in this one, the pro tight end, obviously Tucker Kraft for Green Bay, but Laporta for Detroit as well. That's a bummer. You wish, just every team had their best players, but that's not how it works. Both of those are huge losses for both of the offenses, but yeah, Green Bay's going to have to find a way to slow down Jahmyr Gibbs. Not breaking any news there.
And on the flip side, I am very interested to see if there's a different plan from the Lions when it comes to Hutchinson, because the Packers essentially erased him in week one. Like I was shocked at how effective they were in limiting his ability to affect the football game. Now, obviously, in that dome, big national game, it's going to be insane. The environment will be very different and in favor of the Lions. But I am interested to see if they kind of move him around a little bit more. The thing is, the Packers will start every single kind of protection plan, every point of the line of scrimmage. Where is he? Like, that is going to be the focal point. That's, to me, if they can do anything approaching what they did in week one in regards to limiting him, they should win this game. But that is a big if.
The other thing too is I'm curious. We saw Brian Flores bring everything almost every single. He was bringing so much pressure, and
he wouldn't stop.
The offensive line struggled with some of those protection calls. And now you can't just say like, let's do what Brian Flores does. Like that takes a long time, and it's a short week. You can't just copy and paste some of that stuff. But I do wonder if Detroit's going to look at that and say, man, Jordan looked under pressure a lot in that game. He had to throw off his back foot a ton. And we want him living more in that world. And if we can hit him a few times with that shoulder, maybe he could, starts to, check the line a little bit more, drop his eyes. I'm very interested to see if this is the vanilla, we're going to play too high and we're going to back everything and you're going to have to beat us, slowly matriculating down the field, or it's like, no, game on, we're coming after you like Minnesota did. And we don't think you're going to hang. Like, I'm very interested.
I think it'll be akin to what we saw last year in Detroit. Where they just came out of the gate firing and playing lots of sticky man coverage, Sticky doing a lot of work there, but like where they were just like, we're going to blitz the hell out of you early in this game. And the Packers, I think, were caught off guard a little bit by it, but then they got their feet too late, but they were able to march up and down the field, score points, etc. But I suspect that's got to be the expectation this time, because I'm with you. I think you've watched now as both the Eagles and the Vikings have blitzed the hell out of you, and you've had real issues with it. And I mean everything from the coaching staff, the play calling, to the protection at the line level, the IDing and everything working post snap with the quarterback, his dropping his eyes. All of it has not looked very good or cohesive. So, yeah, I suspect that will be the MO from Detroit, like right from the gun.
I think so too. And we know Dan Campbell's going to want to be aggressive, right? It's also like Thursday, all eyes on this game. It's a huge, the idea that he's going to come out passive in this game is laughable. You know exactly what he's going to do.
We do indeed. Andy, really appreciate the time each and every week. Like I said, no preview video this week, but we'll be back next week. Probably
Friday,
Monday,
right? Friday, right? Are we doing? Oh Friday?
Yeah, Friday. We'll have a Let's Talk Football for you on Friday. There you go. 2 in 1 week, Andy. It's like Christmas early. I love it. I really appreciate the time, man. Talk to you soon.
I can't wait. Thanks, Aaron.